What up, everybody, and welcome back to Wilson Sports here on YouTube. We talk about everything related to Nebraska football. And can you feel it? We're about 1 month away from Nebraska football kicking it off against Minnesota. So why not talk about Minnesota along with Colorado? Those two being, in my opinion, and in most people's opinions, the most important games on Nebraska football schedule. Wherever you have Matt Rule going in year one, whether that's 8-4, 6-6, 4-8, in order to have a good year, everybody can agree you need to either go 2-0 or 1-1 against both these teams. And it's not going to be an easy task. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down what both teams are bringing to the table. Obviously, with Colorado, you got a new head coach there in Deion Sanders. Minnesota, you're keeping with PJ Fleck. And then we're going to break down what Nebraska needs to do, the early key to the games in those. So before we get into it, Big Ten Media Days is coming up along with fall practice. So you know where to come for content about that right here on Wilson Sports. So please hit the subscribe button. You're going to not want to miss this content coming up soon, especially when the season starts. We're going to have a lot planned. So yeah, hit the subscribe button and hit the like on the video. But let's get into it. And let's start off with Minnesota. So we've lost 4 straight against Minnesota. They're bringing back PJ Fleck. And if you remember last year, we were up 10-0 against halftime, playing them in Memorial Stadium. They changed quarterbacks. They go from their senior Tanner Morgan to a guy who's barely played, I'm going to butcher this name, Athan Kaliakamanis. That was close enough. And we didn't score a single point in the second half. He torched us, and they win that game 17-10. And they haven't looked back. You know, PJ Fleck, when he got there from Western Michigan, it was slow. It was, to say the least, it was slow to really turn around. But they're coming off 2 9-4 seasons, and he's 44-27 at Minnesota. I mean, nothing to sneeze at. This is one of the best teams in the Big Ten, especially in the Big Ten West. So, again, what do we need to do in order to win this game, and what do they bring to the table? Because they are losing a lot of guys. So, yeah, their starting quarterback is going to be the backup quarterback who replaced Tanner Morgan in that ball game. Athan Kaliakamanis. That is how you pronounce his name. But, yeah, he was 6 for 12 with 140 yards last year against us in the second half. He's somewhat mobile. I mean, I wouldn't call him a mobile quarterback. He had 100-plus rushing yards for him last year, but nothing really to look at there in the running game. But really, what you're going to be blown away by is his strong arm. Minnesota fans love him. They really thought he played well in the spring game. This is a guy who's been in their system for a couple years now. It's not going to be really, I don't think, rocky to begin with, but it's also going to be his first real start, and he's taking over. You got to take advantage of that. That's your first key to the game. Take advantage of a new quarterback. Pick him off a couple times, get him rattled, get some pressure. So yeah, that's the first key to the game. But let's go to their backfield. So they lose Muhammad Ibrahim. Oh man, finally. I mean, we're talking about a dude who rushed for about 5,000 yards while he was in college football. They also lose their running back 2, Trey Potts. So this is a completely new running back room. And, that's exactly what you were looking for, especially given that they've just produced in that running back room. But we've had transfers. We had people graduate. So they're going to bring in Sean Tyler, who is from Ball State. He was second-team All-MAC with 1,000 yards last year and 7 touchdowns. That's going to be the running back one more likely than not. Just a shifty back, not tall. He's 5'8". Pretty good speed on him, but nothing he does is going to really shock you when it comes to his physicality. That's a big transition going away from a guy like Muhammad Ibrahim, who was he was a bulldozer. He was a bulldozer to kind of going to an elusive back, more like a Ramir Johnson. We'll see how he does. Going to their wide receiver room, I love this receiver room. I think this receiver room is one of the most underrated, not only in the Big Ten, but in the country. They bring back Daniel Jackson, who had a really good game against us last year. They bring back Chris Ottman-Bell, who's been awesome for them over his career. They bring back their starting tight end, who in my opinion is one of the best in the country. And they bring in 2 transfers, one Corey Crooms, who had 800 yards at Western Michigan, and they bring in Elijah Spencer, who had 900 yards at Charlotte. So, I mean, this is a really deep receiver room. You bring in 2 quality transfers along with your 2 main receivers back along with your tight end who's a stud. Really good receiver room. We'll see what happens with a brand new quarterback drops back to pass to him. But let's talk about the O-line now for them. Just again, we're trying to run over their team really quick. So they only return 2 starters. Only 2 starters, Quinn Carroll and one other. Nothing really to sneeze at there. They lose their all-world, basically, center in John Michael Schmidt, who was a stud. Win the second round, I believe. Might have even been first round. But yeah, only returned 2 starters. On the D-line, also they only returned 2 starters. And this is a D-line unit that was really bad for Minnesota last year. You're hoping to take advantage of that as well. And then only 1 linebacker for them this year who returns as a starter, of course. And that's going to be only 1 returns on the linebacker room, but they bring in Ryan Sealeg, who had 140 tackles last year for Western Michigan. So a couple of Western Michigan transfers are now Minnesota Gophers. Obviously, that connection still exists between PJ Fleck and the Broncos. And then last but not least, the secondary, which was lethal last year, man. They lost one guy, but really they bring back Nubin, who's, in my opinion, one of the best safeties in the country. And then they bring back their cornerback 1 in Wally, who had a great game against us last year. And they're also bringing in a transfer, Tyler Bride. I don't know if you recognize the name or not, but he played for Georgia Southern, and he had a heck of a game against us when he came to Lincoln. So that's a deep unit. I wouldn't expect it any other way. That's kind of how it's been for Minnesota the last couple of years. Their secondary has always been deep. So that's just a little bit of talking about their roster, but let's get to the keys to the game. What does Nebraska need to do? We're going up there to Minneapolis to play. And really, I want to start off with this. If there is any time to play Minnesota, it's week 1. It's week 1. Same thing with Iowa. Every year, I watch teams like Iowa, I watch teams like Minnesota, and they're looking incompetent in the first weeks of the year. I mean, we remember when Minnesota played a Bowling Green. I think it was in 2020 or 2021. They played Bowling Green, and they lost at home to them. I mean, this is a team that starts slow off the gates. They're breaking in a new quarterback. This is a beatable team, man. So the first thing that we need to do, I talked about winning the turnover battle against a new quarterback. But the second thing we need to do is a consistent run game. And that's going to be the key to the game in all of our games this year. But we're going to need to establish a consistent run game, whether that's Anthony Grant, whether that's Gabe Irving, whether that's running back by committee. You got to run it down their throat, especially given that their D-line unit really isn't great. It really isn't. I know Anthony Grant did not have a great game against Minnesota last year, so hopefully we can establish a consistent running game because, man, we will be struggling up there if we do not. The second thing, take the lead early and don't look back. Take the lead early and don't look back. A lot of times we either get caught up against teams like Minnesota, they start off hot, or they get the first points, and we're always working our way back, or we get a first first touchdown, we get 2 first touchdowns like last year, and then we don't make any adjustments. Minnesota makes adjustments, they come out firing. We got to take the lead early, first quarter, first possession, go down the field, score a touchdown. That's the ultimate, hey, we're not here to mess around. We're a different Nebraska. We're ran by Matt Rule. And take over the ballgame, ruin their momentum from the beginning. Everybody's going to be hyped up going to this one. Fourth one, again, win the battle of the trenches. You're looking at a D-line unit for Minnesota that's not great, and you're looking at an O-line unit that has historically the last 3 years been really good, but they're only returning 2 starters. And there's a lot of unknowns. They didn't exactly bring in a lot of transfers in that unit. You got to win the battle of the trenches, especially when you're playing a team like Minnesota at Minnesota. Second to last one, play with nothing to lose. That's what I want to see from Nebraska this year. You have absolutely nothing to lose if you're Nebraska. Okay? You could go out there 0-12 and Matt Rule wouldn't lose his job. And we'd still be all right. Okay? You got to play with nothing to lose in every single game. We have nothing to lose. We're 0-0 right now. Okay? Go out there with nothing to lose. Because what I've seen is in our last couple season openers, whether that was going to Illinois to play them in 2021 or going to Ireland to play Northwestern, we play scared. We play like we have everything to lose. No, we're Nebraska. We win. 4-8 last year. We have nothing to lose. Go out there, play play careless. Well, not careless, but play like you have nothing to lose. Exactly. So just play. I don't know how to describe it any better, but don't get caught up in one or two mistakes. And that brings me to my last point. Memory of a goldfish, right? Goldfish have a memory of like 5 seconds. That's what Matt Rule needs to have. Because here's what happens: we throw a pick and the quarterback doesn't forget it, right? Adrian Martinez would get so caught up in his picks that he'd only throw checkdowns the rest of the games. Memory of a goldfish, right? If you make a bad play, you throw a pick, you get a fumble, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Move on. Play with nothing to lose. That's hand in hand with this. I don't care if we lose 40-0. Play with nothing to lose. Memory of a goldfish. Something bad happens, you forget it. Like it's golf. Man, that's the key to the game. Win the trenches. Play with nothing to lose. Consistent run game. Take the lead early. And you know what? Last key to the game, Matt Rule is going to need to show up PJ Fleck in Lincoln. Or not in Lincoln, in Minneapolis. We are not a great team either. And from a talent perspective, I think Minnesota is more talented than us. But in order to win this game, our talent's going to have to show up, and Matt Rule's coaching, in-game adjustments, preparation before the game is going to have to show up. He's going to have to out-coach PJ Fleck in this game in order to win and to start off 1-0. So there's my little preview of Minnesota. It's going to be a hard game. I think we're going to lose this game because I think all in all, Minnesota is more built than us in the trenches. The O-line has been great the last couple of years. The D-line is going to likely have a rebound year. I trust PJ Fleck more than I trust Matt Rule. Truthfully, I do, because Matt Rule hasn't been coaching in college football for the last 3 years. I trust PJ Fleck and the results he's put on the table. They're very similar coaches, man. Like, they're very, very similar coaches in their approach. So, end of the day, I do think Minnesota wins, but you gotta prove me wrong, and you gotta do the things that I said when it comes to the keys to the game. You gotta do them. So there it is. That's Minnesota. Let's get to Colorado. Next week, you're going to Boulder. Coach Prime, new coach, new era, just like us. They're coming off a game against TCU. They're going to go down to TCU to play that. They're going to lose. And truthfully, I am scared of this game because although I look at Colorado and I see them as a mess, I really do. They have a brand new squad. They have a brand new head coach. I think they're going to lose I think they're going to lose by 60 against TCU. I'm just worried because there is talent on this roster. So let's break it down. Deion Sanders, man, new head coach. He was 27-6 at Jackson State. Takes the jump, goes to Power 5, goes to Colorado. But this is a brand new roster, man. He went in there and he told everybody to get out. Infamously, on camera, he said, "Get out because I'm bringing my own luggage and it's Louis," is what he said. And I quote. So only four of the projected starters on their team were there last year. Only 4 out of 22. Incredible. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen that. We've seen it before where there's only 4 returning starters, but the new starters were guys who were on the roster before, right? We've seen that in college football before. We have never seen it where there's 18 new starters and they're all transfers and they weren't there last year. I think this team's going to be dysfunctional to start because they've never played with each other before. And I don't care what you say, as long, fall ball is not going to fix that. It's going to take in-game reps to fix that and get familiar with each other. So, man, you're looking at a brand new roster. Let's break it down. Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion, is going to be quarterback 1. Statistics-wise, I mean, he's flawless. Like, if you look at his stats, man, 7,000 yards in 2 years at Jackson State, 70 touchdowns, 14 interceptions on a 70% completion rate. So, just based on the stats, man, it's incredible. But that's what you would expect a 4-star recruit coming out of high school to probably do against FCS defenses. That's what you would probably expect. The real question with Shedeur is going to be, how does he transition to Power 5? Simple as that. Because you're playing against, you're playing against SWAC level defensive backs and defenses. You're playing against defensive coordinators who aren't even getting paid 7 figures. Like, it's a huge transition, especially when it comes to just the atmosphere, the atmosphere of the stadium. Like, that's different. It's different. Everything's different in Power 5. And a lot of times, you either crumble with the pressure or you thrive. Let's look at a guy like Cameron Ward last year. If you're not familiar with Cameron Ward, he transferred to Washington State from Incarnate Word. He was not great to start the season for Washington State. However, at the end of the year, he was spectacular. I can really see the same happening with Shedeur Sanders, but luckily for us, we play him week 2. I don't think he's going to be great by then. I think he's still going to be figuring things out, and I think it's going to be really easy to rattle him. So that's their quarterback room. Looking at the running back room, they have basically 2 options to be their running back one. Likely there's going to be a running back by committee type of situation. You have Houston transfer Alton McCaskill, and then you have Dylan Edwards, true freshman, who a lot of Nebraska fans are familiar with. We were recruiting him for a while. He committed I believe it was K-State, then decommitted, then went to Notre Dame, and then decommitted, and then went to Notre Dame. Personally, I don't think we missed out on much, but that's another guy in the mix. Going back to McCaskill, he ran for almost 1,000 yards for Houston in 2021. Did not really have that same production for him last year. So, I mean, that's the story of this entire team. Brand new, but really good production at lower levels. I mean, go into the wide receiver room real quick for him. My notes refresh real quick. Going to their wide receiver room, brand new. They return, I think, 1 player that was on their roster in the receiver room last year going into this year. But their starting wide receivers are going to be 2 players from South Florida, Jimmy Horn and Xavier Weaver, who have a combined 3,000 career yards. One of them has about 1,000 career yards. One of them has about 2,000 career yards for South Florida. And then you have to throw in an extra name to this wide receiver conversation. And that's going to be Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was killing it for Jackson State. Obviously, he was the five-star recruit that infamously went to Jackson State for Deion Sanders. Number 1 player in the country. He was killing it. This is a guy who's going to play both ways for him. He did that at Jackson State. I expect him to do it for Colorado, at least for the start of the year, until he realizes it's a lot harder in Power 5 football to play both ways. He's a stud. So you got to watch out for him as well. Honestly, this receiver room is, besides those 3, not good, not deep. But really, I don't think we have to have a conversation about how deep the room is. They're not going to be banged up in week 2. They aren't. So, unfortunately for us, we really won't be able to take advantage of that lack of depth. Going to the O-line, they actually have 2 returning starters who were pretty solid for them last year, but the transfers they brought in at this position, horrendous. They brought in MAC transfers who weren't great, and they brought in a Jackson State guy who wasn't good either. This is an O-line which is really bad. Like, we're talking one of the worst units in Power 5 football, alongside Nebraska, who also has a pretty bad O-line. But yeah, really bad O-line. Defense, but honestly, the offense looks all right. You have a question mark at quarterback, but the stats are there for sure. Sanders. You have 2 solid choices at running back. You have 3 solid choices at wide receiver. O-line's bad, but honestly, as a whole, with Tim Brewster as the offensive coordinator for Colorado, it's not a terrible unit, but the defense is horrendous. 1 returning starter on the whole defense. The D line and linebacker is a liability. It's a liability. That's why I've written down my notes. Liability. You didn't bring in any good transfers there. A lot of unknowns. It's going to be a mess to start with the year. Going to the defensive backs, though, it is a great unit. It really is. You have Travis Hunter, stud. And then you have Cormani McLean, who was the number 1 corner in the country last year. He's going to be a true freshman. So that's something to watch out for. Add in Jacksonville State transfer Cameron Silmon Craig, who was a stud for Jackson State. He has 110 career tackles for him. He's played safety for him. Yeah, he's been all over it. That's a guy they really wanted to come down to Colorado when Deion Sanders got hired. They got him. Deep corner room, really is. But that's their roster. Honestly, it's a talent. Like, from a talent perspective, it's really good. But there's so much raw talent. There's so much inexperience. There's so much lack of depth. O-line and D-line wise, there's not any talent. Skill position, they have a good amount. And honestly, you would probably expect that with Deion Sanders. It's easier for Deion Sanders to get guys like wide receivers and cornerbacks to commit. Harder for him to get guys in the trenches to really buy in with the whole Coach Prime shtick, which is BS, by the way. So here's the key to the games to beat Colorado, man. Number one, this is where you guys get involved. Take over Boulder, man. You saw it in 2019. We took over that stadium. We're going to take over it again. They recently announced it is a sold-out crowd like you would expect. Let's do it, man. I want that crowd to be 90, 80% Nebraska fans. Red all over. I want Nebraska to be booing Colorado when they come out of the tunnel. That's what I want. I want a toxic environment. Like, seriously. Like, you already have heard all the slander going on. Deion Sanders coming out, Rule kind of throwing some shots at Deion. You've heard that throughout the offseason. I want it to be a toxic environment. And I want it to be where, Deion's sitting there like, dang, I'm getting booed on my first ever home game. I want him to get rattled. And speaking about Coach Prime, number two, Nebraska fans keep talking about how bad Coach Prime is, how he can't coach in game. Well, I think there's some validity to that. We got to see it. And I'm calling on Matt Rule right now. Matt Rule has got to outcoach Deion Sanders in every phase of the ball game. Offense, defense, making adjustments at halftime. It shouldn't even be close. Especially from a physicality standpoint and from a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Obedience. Not that. Dang it, dude. Well, I can't think. It's 1 a.m. when I'm making this video. But just from a talent perspective, I think we're better. But we got discipline. That's my word I'm looking for. We got to be more disciplined in them. And that's a problem with Coach Prime when he was at Jackson State. They were not a disciplined unit. You got to outcoach Coach Prime. And that goes hand in hand with taking advantage of their inexperience. They're going to be all over the field, man. They're still not used to playing with each other. They're coming off a loss against TCU. They're going to be raw. Number four, the defensive backs have got to step up in this game, man. Say what you want. Coach Prime is going to want to throw this football. He's going to want to throw this football. He's going to want to air it out. That's what they've been saying. He wants Shedeur Sanders to, pass for 300, 400 yards. The defensive backs have got to step up in this one. And I'm calling on Quentin Newsome. I'm calling on Malcolm Hartzog. I'm calling on Miles Farmer. Man, you guys have to have a good game because they do have a good receiver room, whether that's Travis Hunter, whether that's Jimmy Horn. You got to step up. And the last one I got to say, in order to win this game, we're going to have to put up 30-plus points. Because I am not worried about Colorado's defense stopping us. I'm worried about Colorado's offense making it a ball game in that department. We're going to have to put up 30-plus points and make it hard for them to catch us. And we haven't played a lot of that kind of ball in a long time, whether that's trying to outscore people like that. We're going to have to do it. We're going to have to, this is a type of game where we have to win, 42-27, right? That's the type of game this is. So, yeah, those are my keys to the game against Colorado. A lot more favorable against them than a team like Minnesota, which I think is a lot more disciplined. It's kind of your yin-yang. You're playing against a really disciplined team in Minnesota, historically, been beating you down. And then you go to Colorado, you're playing the crazy Coach Prime, you're playing a bunch of inexperienced guys who have no discipline. Man, it's going to be two different experiences, but you got to go 2-0. You got to find a way to do it. Yeah, man. There you go. There's my video just breaking them down. Obviously, once the games get closer, we're going to start breaking them down more in depth. But I wanted to come up with this right now to kind of put it on people's radars, have some conversations spark. So if you disagree with me or you agree with me, let me know in the comment section below. If you want to have a conversation about anything that I propose in this video, let me know. Hit the like button. It really helps me out and really helps me pump out this content. You're going to see another video coming out this week, talking about Big Ten Media Days. You don't want to miss that one at all. And a lot of other content in store. Can't wait for the season, man. So once again, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. But, if you enjoy the video, let me know. Thank you guys all for watching. Go Big Red, go Matt Rule, and let's go, man. Almost to the season. See ya.